Hey guys, ClindarNumberClindar.com, and of course, the House of Biceps. All right, guys, I'm here at the House of Biceps. Today, I put up a question all over the Instagrams, the Twitters, the House of Biceps Facebook page, and my personal Facebook page. I spread it out as much as possible. A lot of people have been asking me questions, and I want to kind of gather them all together in 1 or 6 videos. I asked you guys for any questions, strongman related, that you might have. Let me see if I can knock them out for you. We're going to go ahead and start from the Instagrams, top to bottom. Man, I can tell I'm a master, so I can barely read my phone. All right, Odd Quad says, tacky or no tacky on Atlas stones? He says for volume, he uses tacky. I'm a big favor of using some kind of tacky. My Atlas stones sit outside. If you've ever seen us train, our place is filled with dirt, dust, mud. So even if I cover my body, my arms, my stones with tacky, it's good for 1 rep. And then, it's basically a dry stone again. By the next week, by the time we come out here to train on them again, it's basically a complete dry stone. So that's the way I've always trained stones. I like to put a little bit of tacky on every one of my fingertips. And then if you look down on, whatever it is part of your arm or body that tends to get kind of scratched, or the tacky or the dirt or whatever comes off, and there's always a lot of dirt on mine, I always get a spot right across my palm. That means that's where my hand is grabbing the stone. I want to add tacky across the palm. And then I got a little spot here where I missed the stone on Sunday. I'll add a little tacky right there. So for me, the big thing is fingertips, palm, and a dot on the forearms. I think a lot of that is just tacky. A lot of that is injury prevention. I think a lot of people get injured on stones because the stone goes to slip just a little bit. And they have to re-grip or turn that wrist under on the stone. I think it causes a little bit of problems, and that's where the bicep tends to pop. It creates kind of a shearing force on that wrist, on that hand, on the bicep. Not a thing you want to happen. Just a little bit of tacky goes a long way for injury prevention. TPS Malden says bench press, yes or no? This is really an individual thing. I hate bench pressing. I really, really dislike bench pressing. But I think for me, the bench press, especially with bands, is a great way for me to get some extra tricep work in without overstressing my pecs, without overstressing my shoulders. Primarily during the time period in which people were using 8-inch and 10-inch logs, you saw almost everybody get some kind of jerk or power jerk on the log. The smaller the log, the more leg drive you can drive into it. And still, I see a lot of the more athletic guys that are still able to jerk, and you can see their athleticism come through. For the people that transfer their athleticism over into the log press, a lot of those guys used to see a great return on their 4-board press, on their 3-board press. And a lot of times they use the same grip, maybe a little wider than their log press, but a very similar grip width on a 3 and 4 board press, going really, really heavy, 5s, 3s, singles, things like that. They found that it was not only a really good builder, but a really good indicator as to where their log press was. I would say on the bench press, the board press is probably a better option, even if you're looking at a 2-board press. But I think the 2-board and the 3-board press is a great way to save your shoulders, get that extra tricep strength in there to work on being able to snap the log out at the last second. A lot of guys swear by it. A lot of guys said it does nothing except beat them up. So give it a shot. For me, it's bench press and board press with bands all the way. Again, TPS Malden says when, how often to program weightlifting and variance. First of all, I'm glad you called it weightlifting and not Oli. Every time someone calls weightlifting Oli, God kills a kitten. I'm pretty sure that is a fact. So thanks for calling it weightlifting. As far as when to use weightlifting for the sport of strongman, I think that primarily you can see an athlete. I could take any strongman and have them do the muscle versions, obviously the power versions. And don't get this mistaken. A power snatch is a snatch caught just a hair above a parallel squat. So just bringing it up and swinging it up, it's not a power snatch. A power snatch is much deeper than what most powerlifters call a full snatch. It's much deeper than an SPF squat, I'll tell you that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I think I can take most strongmen, most powerlifters, most people in general, and have them do power snatches, muscle snatches, cleans, muscle cleans, all of the athletic variants of those lifts, and do them from blocks where the barbell is just below the knee, the barbell is dead center on the knee, or maybe even just a hair above the knee. And I think we can do that for sets of 2s and 3s, maybe 5s, because things start to break down right there. Especially concentration starts to break down on the snatch and cleans. I think you can do them from anywhere around the knee level without beating up the back, without risking a hamstring pull, and you can still make it a very effective lift. This can be done, I do this with my athletes. I usually give them 2 days a week to do whatever you want to do, as long as it includes a snatch from blocks and a clean from blocks. I don't even care if it's a clean with the axle. I also include some front squats. Most people can front squat lightweight. I'm even talking about someone like myself with a max front squat of around 600. To walk in the gym, do the bar for 5, a plate for 5, 2 plates for 2, and 3 plates for 1. It's an amazing recovery workout, even if I did squats and events the day before. So I think you can front squat. I think you can snatch from blocks. I think you can clean from blocks pretty much as often as you can get in the gym and actually do it and stay mentally aware. All of that said, I still believe that doing the snatch and doing the cleans make your powerlifting and your strongmen weaker. The strength curve on both of those lifts are completely different from a deadlift. They're completely different from a powerlifting squat. They are pretty much completely different from anything that you're going to see when it comes to strongman related. Not saying that you can't find someone that it does work for, because I have found people, and I'm sure you can too, find people that it will work for. But I know, especially for me, every time I start pushing the cleans, and by pushing it, I mean 200 pounds on the cleans. And this is for someone, me pulling 750 to 800, working on 200-pound cleans kills my deadlift. Technique goes off, explosiveness goes off, timing goes off, deadlift goes down, all my strongman events go straight down. So it's just not worth it. But I can do it from blocks, even with the same weight, and it doesn't screw my body up near as bad. The last one that I can see from TPS Malden, why is that Murph so darn handsome? That's just one of the mysteries of mankind. It's one of those things that we're only going to find out when we get to heaven, brother. NJ Walden says, when my back squat PR goes up, my deadlift numbers go down and vice versa. What's causing this? I can't really say without looking at your entire program, because I look at everything as a system of inputs and outputs and things like that. And I really need to see what's going on over the last 6 months. I always ask my clients, what works for you and what does not work for you? Most people don't know this. So I would always ask, what works to build your deadlift? What works to build your squat? If you see me, I can come in the gym and I box squat. The box squat builds my deadlifts, my strongman events like nothing else. It's the most efficient and effective exercise that I do all week in my training session. I can do it for years nonstop without getting beat up or injured. Yes, my box squat is at parallel at best. I also add bands and chains and things of that nature. I don't do it absolutely balls out. Most of it's always dynamic effort, focusing on being explosive, being very fast, and very good cardio conditioning for a box squatter anyway. And that tends to make my deadlift, stones, tire flip, super yoke, everything go up. When it's time to focus on just maxing out on a squat, I will add the squat. I will cut my dynamic effort box squat session short, add some squats in there after that, or drop the dynamic effort box squat session completely for a few weeks so that everything else starts to go down, or I will squat on a completely different day. Why does when your squat go up, your deadlift go down, and vice versa? your body is only going to take so much stress at once. I remember Van Hatfield years ago, before he turned professional, so we're talking a long freaking time ago, came from the sport of powerlifting into strongman. And I remember him posting on a message board saying that he was confused that his strongman events were going up and his power lifts were going down. But whenever he pushed his power lifts and they went up, his strongman events went down. Well, your body can only recover and progress from so much at one time. So if you're pushing one thing really, really hard and making progress, your body's probably going to suffer somewhere. But I still think it all comes back to what works for you and what doesn't. And if there's something that doesn't work for you and that's what you're doing, eliminate it. Strongly Typed says, what one thing have you learned about and or from your training this year that you'd recommend to others? I'm just reading this for the first time, have not had a chance to really think about this. I've put more into my diet this year than I ever have in my entire life. I've been more focused on diet. Still with me, the number one issue is always going to be health with me and just staying healthy. It's so rare that I have a day out of a month that I feel absolutely wonderful. Me trying to nail down my diet and get it to a position to where I can be more effective has been a big thing. The thing that I have learned, I'm 40 years old, and as I've gotten older, I strayed farther and farther away from just being an athlete. I wanted to just get bigger. I wanted to just get stronger. I wanted to be a weightlifter. I wanted to just be a strongman. And I've always been naturally athletic. Run, jump, dunk a basketball, do flips, put a kick above my head, do all kinds of crazy things. And I think it took me losing a lot of that because I wasn't using it. I wasn't doing anything to continually build my athleticism. I know I can tell this year, now that I've just magically tried to use my athleticism, that it's not where it used to be. So, I do something every day, a lot of ladder drills, foot drills. I've got a son that's not 2 years old. So just me chasing him around the house is tougher than any kind of ladder drill that I could possibly put myself through. So I do, I've learned that the more that I put into just being an athlete, just the dumb stuff that we haven't done since, middle school basketball, has made an absolute huge difference in my performance overall. And that's the stuff that I should have never stopped doing in the first place. Frank Tanklin. Clint, I always had a terrible appetite, so I never consistently packed on pounds. But now that I've quit smoking, I'm finally crushing food at an alarming rate. Problem is, I take many nasty craps a day and have gas that smells poisonous. Is this maybe an adaptation phase, or should I be trying to find something to settle my guts? Man, you're asking somebody with a disease that just revolves around toilet issues. I can totally embarrass my son in a store from rows away. And it's not my fault. I honestly can't control it. Can't help it. I think, there are a lot of things that you can do. A lot of people have really good luck with probiotics. I am not one of them, and I know a lot of other people that are not one of them. Tends to make the gas much worse. What I would suggest, if your appetite is through the roof, take a week and don't eat anything unless you cook it. Chicken should look like chicken. Pork should look like pork chop. Beef should look like beef. It should be, ground up in a pan and browned. It should look like a steak. It should not be mixed with a bunch of creams and casseroles and things like that. A potato should look like a potato on your plate. Try to keep your food as simple as possible. Do not reduce your calories. Keep your calories high. Keep loading yourself with lots and lots of calories. But there's a lot of things you can do. A lot of people benefit from lowering their carbohydrate intake. From wherever you're at, just lower it, 20%, 30%. Sometimes I've had great benefits by not having carbs my last 2 meals. I will still get 600 to 800 grams of carbs in a day, throughout the day, but my last 2 meals, I try to switch my carbs out with, an avocado. So I'm eating, my last 2 meals each could be a pound of beef or a pound of pork with 2 avocados each. And I might even have a diet soda at that point, but I try to almost always have like coconut water mixed with essential aminos and branched chain aminos and electrolytes as well. So, a lot of people have good luck trying to switch the protein sources. Eggs tend to bother me quite a bit. So switching out your protein source, switching out your carbohydrate source, playing with your carbohydrate timing, or making sure that your food is as close to actual food as possible might do wonders for you. And the only thing you have to do is just slowly get on a roll and things will just keep rolling. Nice Monson, I'm really sorry if I've destroyed this, asked if a top level strongman, Eddie Hall, Z, Shaw, Thor, did a powerlifting meet, would they crush the records? And if so, what do I think they would total? First of all, yes. I think, if you're looking at the raw numbers, obviously they're not going to be making weight down to the 90 kilo class. They're not going to be making the 198s, that's for sure. But I think when you see people who are 6'6" and above, or even if you take someone like Eddie Hall, it's 6'3", if you take someone with that amount of height and people who have spent that amount of time putting on enough muscle to fill out their frames, I don't think you have anyone like that in powerlifting. You go all the way back to like Gary Franks. He was just huge. I mean, tall, giant, huge. And it took him years to fill out his frame. And as soon as he began dialing things in, we saw world record totals. Stuff that, I remember when he totaled 2406, and it just blew the minds of the rest of the world at 2406. But we're talking about someone who was, 6'5", something like that, and began to fill out his frame. I can't answer this any better than Nick Best did. I'm a huge Nick Best fan, and if you look at Nick Best is setting raw world records while competing at the top levels of strongman. What else do you say? What else do you say? So Nick's post says, Big Z came from powerlifting, IPF powerlifting nonetheless. Eddie Hall would total close to 2,500 raw, but his grip would limit his deadlift to 1,000-ish. Shaw would squat mid-900, bench over 6, deadlift 1,000 plus. Thor, 1,000-ish squat and deadlift, high 500 to 600 bench press range. And if there's a big contest away from any strongman contest where they had a good solid 4 months to prepare, the numbers would be huge. Oh yeah, the prize money would have to be there as well. And Nick just mentioned that he killed the records in the Masters 308s without any preparation. So absolutely, I think these guys have absolutely unlimited potential. Their just focus is in a complete different direction. If they decided that's what they wanted to do, I have no reason to believe that they couldn't do anything short of world records. Dustin W. Mills asked, Clint, do you have any assistance exercises recommended for the Circus dumbbell? I am terrible at the Circus dumbbell. It might be my worst overhead press event, which is really saying something because I am really bad at all overhead pressing, all pressing in general. I've broken every finger, both elbows, tore my right tricep tendon off, both rotator cuffs, biceps, tricep lat. What else? Dislocated my collarbone. With the dumbbell, a lot of it comes down to positioning and making sure that you're in the right position. And you've got to make sure that dumbbell, your hand and that dumbbell is really close to your body. And I just can't. That's as close as I can get to my face right there. So when I shave, I need a nice long shaver just a shave. So much has just been broken. My body just simply doesn't move in that direction. The only way I can lift it is to get in a really funny position anyway. So I do a lot of stuff with clients, training the Circus dumbbell 2 and 3 times a week, depending on how often they can recover. A lot of work in the 60, 70, 75, and 80% range, making sure that they're nailing the technique over and over correctly. If they can determine the correct motor patterns and hit them, just like a sneeze. You know, if it's one of those things that you're not thinking about and it just happens without you really having to control it, you're going to be so much more effective and efficient at it. One thing that I've found, and I haven't done this in a couple of years because I haven't really focused on the dumbbell or strongman in general in a couple of years till recently. I've done this with a bamboo bar. I don't have a bamboo bar here in the gym, hint, hint. But I went and bought a little cheap bar from a sporting goods store. I've got it in the back room right now, but it's a kid's plastic bar. And it's only about 3 foot long and might weigh a couple of pounds. And then I will take some micro mini bands or some light bands and hang from it, and then hang some 2.5 pound plates or 5 pound plates. So it creates kind of a bouncing motion on the bar. Like you've seen people where they hang kettlebells with bands from a barbell to make like kind of a chaos bar. I've done this for one hand, you know, on one of those bars. So, you know, if the bar weighs 5 pounds, you know, I might put, you know, a total of 25 to 30 pounds of bouncing swinging weight on there and just work on some one-arm presses. That's a great way to create stability. Everything from front squats, tons of rear delt work, side delt work, lots and lots of lat work. Something I do every single night, I've got a micro mini band and a mini band. I've got a squat rack, squat stands in my living room, and I just attach the band to the stands. I just do tricep extensions. You know, I'll do 4 sets of 25 every night, just enough to get a ton of blood and a good little pump going in that tricep. My triceps stay sore, so whenever I stop doing those for 2, 3, 4 days, the triceps over-recover and kind of slingshot into massive PR gains. It's another great exercise to do. It only takes a couple of minutes every single day. So there's a lot of different things. I would love to see it on video, love to see what mistakes you're making before I could say exactly what it is you need to do to get better. Fruits punch reg. Sorry if I missed a letter there. It says, Dear Clint, I'm a strongman enthusiast, and unfortunately I was too arrogant. Now I cannot deadlift or squat without I think he says pain the next day. For 2 weeks later, he's unable to move from the bed. Every move that requires the use of the lower back and the psoas muscles hurts immensely. He tried physical therapy and tried a lot of stretching. Is this common in the strongman world? And what would I recommend for him to be doing? Hey, Nick Best commented, yes, this is common. It's been 6 months and a lot of learning to go. I've got 2 herniated discs in my back right now. A lot of that is tied into my psoas muscle. I've seen a couple of physiotherapists. One of them told me, take 2 weeks and just warm up when you go in the gym. No actual work, just go through your warm-ups, stop before your actual first set. See if that improves it. Because he knew that I had world's strongest man. And the other one told me if I go to the gym again, never come back and see him. So I never went back to see him because I'm going to the gym. Look, there are a lot of things. If you are doing simple motions of squats and you're having issues, I would immediately switch you over to some kind of box squat, a high box squat, and I'd want to see what you're doing to make sure it's correct. You need to make sure that what you're doing is correct first. The squat is one of the most natural movements that the body can make. If you cannot box squat with the empty bar or a plate per side, then you have no business going heavy. If you can't do it correct with a lightweight, you have no business going heavy. If you are out for weeks and then you jump back into the gym and you start training really, really hard, there's your problem. If you have any kind of technical issues, there's your problem. Sometimes if you have an issue like this, and I love to do free squats, weightlifting squats, but if I do them with any kind of intensity for more than a few weeks in a row, I start having knee problems. I always have, ever since I was really, really young. But I can do a box squat to a parallel-ish to high box 52 weeks a year, non-stop, really, really intense, with bands and chains. I can make progress and not get injured. All that said, I have been in pain. I am in pain. I will tell you that the key is to never stop moving. I absolutely never stop moving. As we get older, you start to learn that you have to do more and more therapy work. The stuff that you do out of the gym has to be more work than what you're doing in the gym. You can't come in the gym and kill yourself unless you're willing to put in double or triple the amount of time outside of the gym. Everyone sees the videos where I'm training and killing myself in the gym, yelling, screaming, headbutting bars, blood running out of my nose, but they don't see me spending 3 and 4 hours every single day doing physiotherapy work at home. The stretching, the mobility. I keep an E-stim machine on my back almost 24 hours a day. Sometimes I sleep with it on. If I'm having back pain, I will keep some kind of hot cream on my back, all over my abs, all over my psoas muscle, and wear my 15-year-old reband belt on top of that. I keep moving all the time. I keep stretching. Your therapy has to far outweigh the amount of work that you do in the gym if you want to get anywhere in the sport. Darren Abrigo just says progression on farmer's handle and yoke. Man, that really all depends on where your weakness is. Is it low back? Is it strength? Is it technique? You come down to every single lift that you do. It comes down to, you miss it or you're bad at it because of one of three things: mental, physical, or technical. So the best thing you can do is never have a training session unless you are addressing at least 2 of those 3 issues. The mental aspect, the physical aspect of just getting physically stronger, and the technical aspect. Sometimes the mental aspect is just learning to be successful with the weight, or learning that you can strain and you're still going to survive. And that's a big thing with strongman. The physical thing, you might just need to work on getting physically stronger in your grip. You might need to be physically stronger in the hamstrings. All throughout your midsection might need to be stronger, so you're not wobbling and falling all over the place. Maybe you need a stronger grip. Could be anywhere down to the ankles, calves, especially with the yoke. A lot of people will crash on the yoke because of calf, ankle, and knee instability. And technical training. There's nothing wrong with doing speed runs, and I just mean timed sets. Whether you're looking at, set a distance, 50 feet, whatever. Just like if you were running sprints, and focus on foot movements, motor patterns, video it, and see where you're making the mistakes. The video doesn't lie. So watch yourself and analyze your steps. Watch your body mechanics if you're twisting and falling all over the place. Go back and watch videos of me doing farmers and super yokes 6 months ago. And I was walking, carrying these implements like a duck. My whole body is twisting and shifting and shaking. Go back, 2 months ago, me doing that with the frame. And the same thing, the frame is all over the place. I spent the last 2 months doing nothing but working on body mechanics and my ability to walk with a normal gait. And then you're watching me now set huge PRs on the frame, and it looks so freaking smooth. The only thing that I worked on was the technical side, which for me mostly was working on the way my body mechanics work. So I can give you some program that's probably not going to work for you because I don't know where your weakness is. But always make sure every program, every training session, every time you train anything that's relevant to getting better at this event, it addresses 2 of these 3 things: mental, physical, and technical issues. Carl Arson 91. Do I think competitions will continue getting heavier and forcing the athletes to get heavier, or do I think there will be more focus on endurance in the future? I think everything's going to continue to get heavier. I think that the athletes are in better condition than what you think. You have a few people that will talk about, how difficult it is to get up and move. And, you look at people like Zavickas, well over 400 pounds, 6'4", 6'3", I'll call him 6'10", I don't care. And you say, man, he's so freaking big. And then you see him win a medley. How does someone that's over 400 pounds and they're not 7 foot tall win the medley? And they're not dying for oxygen. I go out there and I bring in the groceries, and I want an ambulance and a tank of oxygen and some nose torque to bring me back to life. You know, in my living room floor, my kitchen. And you have someone that's, you know, Big Z doing the medley and then walking over and just, what's the next event? So, you know, we had, you know, years ago the split in Strongman where, you know, you had IFSA and World's Strongest Man. That used to always be the controversy, that World's Strongest Man was all cardio and IFSA was pure strength. When they rejoined back up and everybody came together, the guys who were doing all the cardio kicked butt at the max strength stuff, and you know, are just as well as everybody else. And the guys who be doing all the max stuff did just as well on the cardio stuff. So, you know, I think you always have that pendulum swing in the sport, and it's always going to go back and forth. I think when you're looking at the athletes, you looked back at all the cardio era, the endurance era. A lot of that was based around seeing Pujanowski out there. It was based around seeing, you know, guys like Phil Pfister, people who are not absolutely brute strength athletes. And you have to remember that World's Strongest Man is a show. So it has to be a show. It has to be, I mean, you're going to sell it for unimaginable millions and millions of dollars, euros, and pesos all over the world. So it has to be fun to watch. You have to make it good for the athletes. It has to be good for the athletes. The athletes have to be successful. So I think as the athletes continue to get bigger and stronger, they're going to make the events suit the players that they have on the field, not the other way around. 100% natty. How big a gap in weight should you use when progressing on stones? How much volume is best for training stones in terms of sets and reps? Man, it's another impossible question really to answer. If I'm not doing a ton of events that day, a lot of it will depend on how my bicep tendons feel. But, you know, a good general rule for me whenever I was competing hard and heavy was, you know, to load 10 stones, no matter what. So that was 2 5-stone runs. As far as what kind of gap to use, most people don't have an issue. It's whatever stones we have at the gym. So if you're working on a 5-stone run, you want that 5th stone to be something you have to work for. It shouldn't be easy, but it shouldn't be impossible either. You need to train your body to be successful. Train stones with a timer going at all times. You don't want to learn to be lazy and pause in between stones and reset and take 5 breaths and re-tacky between every stones. You should be able to feel the pressure. As far as sets, reps, and percent, always be successful. I always load to a higher platform than normal. Always training at max on stones is a great way to have a lot of injuries, whether it's spine, bicep, shoulder, and it may not show up while doing stones. It might show up while doing other events. Log press, bench press, clean and press, a lot of other events where you find yourself afterwards yelling and screaming that your bicep and forearm is absolutely killing you. Submaximal training is the way to go. Limit your volume. He also asked, how do I plan out my diet, count my macros and my calories? This is really interesting for me. It's been one of the bigger things that I've worked on this year. As far as my macros, I really only count 2 things. I count how many grams of protein I get in per day and how many total calories that I get in per day. As long as I get above 350 grams of protein and 400 is superior, and as long as my calories are well above 6,000, I don't really worry about it. I don't eat fast food. I don't eat junk food. It's very common for me to break 1,000 grams of carbs a day. Most of all of my fat will either come from a couple of avocados that I'll have during the day or from the meat that I have during the day. So I'm not eating cakes and junk food like that. I'm not eating McDonald's and pizza. I worry about focusing on cooking meat on the grill every single day. So normally for me, I will cook a minimum of 4 pounds of meat per day. A lot of my training days, that will include some sausage, and our sausage here tends to have a much higher protein content than what you normally see in the States. But it's not uncommon for me to go to the 5 to 6 pound per day range of meat. So I generally have a good idea of how many pounds or kilos of meat that I need to eat per day. Cook it every morning when I wake up, knock it out by the time I go to bed. 2 avocados during the day. I use, was it MyFitnessPal or whatever on my phone to make sure that I'm somewhat close to where I need to be. But for me, the general rule is going to be somewhere close to 400 grams of protein and well over 6,000 calories per day. And that's what it takes for me to recover. B. Benzel, I don't know who that is. It says, Clint, I read your thing, Strongman questions, and what are your favorite underwear? Immediately popped in my head. Then 1 second later, I read underwear color. Do we all share? What are we supposed to do here? Since you asked, I mean, I am slightly obsessive. I won't lie, I've got some mental issues. Nobody asked what my mental issues are, so I'm not going to go into detail with that. But 17 years of strongman, every event day, blue Fruit of the Looms. That's it. There are no other options. Train 2 days in a row, better have 2 pair of blue Fruit of the Looms. Carl Moggensen, is it possible to compete as a natural in strongman and do good for a guy with average height genetics? And do I know any naturals competing? I've got lots of athletes that I work. I'm trying to think if I have any athletes that are using anything. I don't think I have any athletes. I don't think I've had any athletes this year or last year that use anabolics. Maybe a couple of guys at Worlds. Is it possible? Absolutely. I know of a World's Strongest Man competitor, a World's Strongest Man podium finisher. I know several podium finishers that were clean the year they won they were on the podium. I know one World's Strongest Man athlete that's competed at World's Strongest Man 4 different years clean. I know a World's Strongest Man title holder that made it to World's Strongest Man, lifetime drug-free. Absolutely know that. But those guys, are phenomenally genetically gifted as it is. They didn't have to turn that ace card until late in their game. I have a lot of athletes in England where they have a lot of natural championships, and they're lifetime drug-free. They do absolutely well. We pay a lot more attention to monitoring the amount of volume, sets, reps, and the percent of work that they do. We have, I don't like to use the term deload, but we have some cautious weeks where I pull them back before I know they're about to get, I call it mentally stressed. Their body's going to go into some kind of form of stress, and they're just going to be worn down and tired. So I try to get them to do less before they ask me if they can take a deload. But absolutely, you have to focus. No matter what. If you want to be in strongman, and you're not going to eat, then you shouldn't be in strongman. If you're not going to throw down serious nutrition from every angle, if you're not going to do physiotherapy, physical therapy, if you're not going to do rehab and prehab every single day, if you're not going to focus on recovery methods from every single angle, every single day, 365 days a year, then strongman is a recipe for failure. At no point does anabolics or chemicals change that. You have to focus on every recovery method. And that's mostly food, nutrition, and physiotherapy. So I think you can do absolutely wonderful, lifetime drug-free. You can do amazing and be an amazingly happy competitor, lifetime drug-free. But you have to take everything else 100% serious. Spence Clarkson Fitness. Can you combine some strongman and bodybuilding? Absolutely. I think it's important, no matter if you're in powerlifting or strongman, to combine some quote-unquote bodybuilding into what you do. I think you'd be very, if you look at bodybuilding is about, working a muscle body, not not even a muscle group, but just, a muscle belly. It's picking out what needs to be fixed and working on it. So that whole concept comes down into weak point training. Getting the reps in, getting the sets in. If you go back and just go and watch some of Brian Shaw's training videos. Watch some of his deadlift videos. After they finish deadlifts, it's a ton of lat and back work. And it's not just, sets of 3s and sets of 5s, or load some stones or sandbags, or say, we'll call it a day and go home. We deadlifted. How much else do we need to do? No, they're killing themselves doing pull downs and rows and shrugs and all kinds of stuff to build muscle back there. And if you have a weakness, that's the time to address it. So I think the term bodybuilding, for a strongman or powerlifter, instead of looking at it as I'm going to diet down and cut up for the summer, look at it as I've got a weak point. Now I have to focus on that weak point. I have to work that muscle, absolutely, especially if you have any kind of injury. The one thing that I always see with injuries, going off on a tangent here, but this is where this is important. A lot of guys will hurt their shoulders. Let's say they've got one little tiny muscle here in their shoulder. You got 1 billion muscles in your shoulder. Rough number. You got 1 billion muscles in your shoulder and you hurt some little muscle right here. I guarantee you that 6 weeks later, you're going to be able to move that shoulder again. And you're going to think, I'm perfectly fine. Well, what's happened is that muscle right there, it didn't strengthen. You just learned, all the muscles around it just learned to take over and adapt, because you wanted that shoulder to function, to be able to raise. So all the muscles around it picked up the slack. And that little tiny little section of muscle that was injured probably may have healed, but it didn't grow. It didn't come back to full form and function, especially if all that you're doing is strongman events. Log press, axle press, bench press, circus dumbbell press, things like that. Bodybuilding always comes down to find that exact tiny area where I need to get better and focus on it. And I think that's the one thing that you can really take into your sport of strongman or powerlifting from bodybuilding and make bodybuilding work for you. Well, guys, that was the series of questions from the Instagrams. I'm going to shoot part 2 tomorrow from the Facebooks, wrap everything up for you over the weekend. Have a great one, guys.